Hi, I'm Chef Pants, and today we're going to see if we can turn this box of scraps into the most accurate Darth Maul lightsaber ever. Kind of. But pretty much. So I'm pretty late to the whole Maul Shadow Lord excitement, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a huge fan of Darth Maul. I mean, he's got a wig on, but I've got Darth Maul's unpainted bust right there. That is a whole nother video for a whole nother time. The simple fact is, I love Darth Maul. Why? Because I'm a freaking Star Wars nerd. That's why. The kind that knows that Homeboy's story doesn't just end with... Now, I've lost count of how many times I've actually seen the Clone Wars TV show, and I know for a lot of people the animation style is sort of like a tough hurdle to get past, and the fact that it sort of starts off as like a kids television show until you slowly start to realize that it is anything but a kids TV show. And yes, Maul is there too, and he is absolutely magnificent, and that's mostly because of this man. Yes, and on top of being Darth Maul, he is also Starkiller from The Force Unleashed, which was like the entirety of my middle school Star Wars fandom. Long story short, I can't get enough of Darth Maul, and I have had this box sitting in my office for way too long, just collecting dust. And I just felt like now is the time to break it out and try and build the most accurate Darth Maul lightsaber that I possibly can. So, here we go. So inside the box, we have the main body of the hilt, which I'll get to in a second why this part is really, really cool. But we have a steel rod, the emitter piece that goes on the very end, a couple of rubber gaskets. Oh boy. And a bunch of different size washers. Now, the reason why this hilt in particular is so special is because it's made out of resin. And there's probably a lot of lightsaber collectors who are watching this who are like, that's lame. My Darth Maul lightsaber is like, you know, aluminum and cool and lights up and stuff. Well, I'll tell you. Hello, I am Chef Pants, and welcome to Darth Maul's Lightsaber, a history. This microphone is a little tiny lightsaber, and for some reason, I'm wearing a lab coat because it's more official that way. So picture this, it's the late 90s and you are working on the new Star Wars movie. You're hired by Nick Gillard and your task is to make the new lightsabers, and a lot of them. You don't have access to a high production CNC machine, so in order to replicate dozens upon dozens of the exact same lightsaber hilt, you make a mold of the master and you cast a bunch of them out of resin. And then all you have to do is basically thread a bunch of the found parts that you have onto the hilt, and then you have a bunch of copies of the lightsaber that the actors are going to use on set. Darth Maul's lightsaber in particular had a bunch of different versions. So when faced with the task of replicating Darth Maul's lightsaber, it's sort of a pick your poison kind of scenario. So I guess now it's time to figure out what poison we'll be picking. What am I going to do to this hilt besides just putting it together and calling it a day? There are a few things about this hilt, as accurate as it is, that are inaccurate. One of the biggest things is this emitter section, which you can see does not have the washer inlaid into the hilt. A majority of the lightsabers from the Phantom Menace and the prequel trilogy have that washer inlaid into the emitter. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to turn this on the lathe and make space for that washer. The other thing is there's a threaded rod that is going through all the hilts. Because they're made out of resin, they had to have something for the aluminum and sometimes carbon fiber rods that were the blades to mount to, so that they could actually do fight scenes and stuff and superimpose the glowing lightsaber in post. So I need to bore a hole through the center so that our steel rod can actually go all the way through. The other thing I found out is of the 3 larger washers that came with the hilt, one of them has like a little notch out of it. So that's a bummer. There's just a big flat spot right there. No bueno. This thing though is a work of art. I love the effort that went into making an accurate version of this hilt. And we're going to try and celebrate that. See, it's already starting to look super, super accurate to the film. That's going to be awesome. I now have our machined end threaded all the way. I bore the hole so it goes all the way through, and then I tapped that, which was a whole thing. I may have messed up on our thing. The washer that's supposed to go there has a little bit too much of a lip. So I think I'm gonna have to find a slightly bigger washer. It's not gonna take away from the accuracy all that much, but I definitely messed up. But I'm learning. I'm new to the lathe. I'm not a machinist. I am a hobbyist. I'm just glad I did that before I went to the store. All right, put this in my pocket and let's go. All right, got a few things. One, I think I got some more appropriately sized gaskets. Oh yeah, that fits much better. All right, that fit on there a lot better, and it's actually going to stay, as opposed to me struggling with this dried out piece of garbage. I'm super happy with that. One less thing. Now, I also got these, which are going to fit frickin' perfectly into our thing. And then I'm going to try and thread this washer. This has been the biggest pain in the butt today. I'm still figuring it out. All right, let's do it. All right, that's done, but check this out. Washer, threaded rod. Threaded washer. Okay, so I don't want this entire rod to go down the length of here. I think I only want it to go about that far in. So I am going to make a mark. All the washers kind of move around a bit. So I'm going to use a bit of tape to thicken it up. Yep. And it'll allow me to stack those a lot more reliably. So with the new washers first, 2 and 3. Now, this is the exact washer stacking pattern that the actual prop uses. And yes, Darth Maul's lightsaber and a few other lightsabers, including Plo Koon's, just have washers stacked between other metal bits and are basically threaded onto a resin body. That is how they were able to batch make these lightsabers for production. There we go. So what I'm going to try and do is thicken up the width of this bolt here so that we can have a more snug fit when we epoxy it to the inside. Back it off a bit, because I want the hole to hold our threaded rod pretty true. Ugh. Sort of like that. And that's what it's going to look like before we chop off the end there. It just feels right. Let's give it a go. All right, now we're going to let that sit for 5 minutes. Oh, that's so nice. Whew. That's just gonna stay because it's threaded. Oh man. Look at that. So before I chop this off, what are we gonna do about that? Nothing. We're not going to do anything about this because this is pretty much exactly how it is in the film. I think I'm going to do a little bit of weathering. In the movie, you can almost clearly see the hole for the threaded rod in the cut in half version of Maul's lightsaber. God, there's something about just the weight of it too. It's got all the actual components that the original would have had. Bet your ass I'm going to try the hairspray technique. All right. Hairspray coming in clutch, dude. So I darkened it, which I can clearly see in the actual film that it's dark, but I also added just a little bit of burning around the edge, which that may not have been there. I can't get a freeze frame that's good enough to actually see what the weathering is like, if any, but I like it. It adds just a bit of goodness. All right, so it is 24 hours later, and I've been doing quite a bit of research on the hilt itself. Now, there's a few things that are concerning. Obviously, because I messed up on the thing, our washer is a little bit too big. That's fine with me. It is literally only a millimeter too big. That is a little upsetting to me. There are a few photos of online which have the non-washer emitter. It's basically just a solid piece of aluminum like we started with. As far as I can tell, that is from two very particular hilts. There's one full hilt where that detail is present, and the pyro version of the hilt. Yes, there's a pyro version of Darth Maul's lightsaber, which is the one that Ray Park is holding when it gets cut in half and he gets kicked. That version has a few different things. One, it's got a little half washer right there, which had a matching half washer on the other side so that when they stuck it together, it would register and hold. And then it had, instead of these two buttons, it had a little metal lever where Ray Park could trigger the pyro effect as it got split in half. Obviously, I didn't want to make that one. I wanted to make a cut in half version of the actual hilt, which I cannot find any photos of, really. So in actuality, this hilt that I have made with the washer may be completely inaccurate.
Maybe.
Because although there was a very specific version for the cut in half which had no washer, I like the washer better. This is my preference on what I want my split in half Maul lightsaber to look like. Specifically one that I feel could have walked right off of set. Now, all that's left to do is chop off this metal rod. So let's go do that. I'm not gonna chop off the rod. You thought the video was just gonna end with me just making this and just calling it a day? No, you thought that I didn't have something more special for you? How dare you? You should know me better by now. And why am I gonna keep the rod? I'm gonna keep the rod because we're gonna make an accurate replica of the aluminum stand-in blade that they used on set to fight each other with. Aesthetically, it's gonna look just like all the photos that you see of the actual prop. I have 3D printed a couple of little inner pieces that will marry this hilt to our red screen blade. And we've got all the stuff, so let's do it. All right, so let's mark where our holes are gonna be, and then we're gonna drill and tap them. so I would, that actually lines up very well. All right, very nice. Now the other thing is the thickness of this aluminum rod in particular is not totally accurate. So what I did was I 3D printed the difference. There we go. Now, before we do that, let's discuss our orange. So from what I can tell, and this is not true for all of them, the blades, they either seem to be heat shrunk with a color or painted. I am gonna go with the heat shrink route because I found this and I figured, hey, why not? Let's give it a go. You kidding me? Did I seriously get the wrong heat shrink? Yep. Well, it looks like we're gonna paint it instead. Now, before we do, let's just thread our blade on so we can get that going. This is gonna take a while. Now the heat shrink would have been awesome, but this wouldn't be a Chef Paints video if we didn't run into a full-on load of annoying obstacles right before the finish line. Try not to hit R2. This is 3/4 of an inch, which is accurate to the ones that they had on set. But I forgot to order the bigger size of this. But that's okay because a lot of the originals were painted instead of the heat shrink. So in a way, we're just being forced to be a little bit more accurate. Just gotta remember, I am not Ray Park. I am not Liam Neeson. I am not Ewan McGregor. I'm just a dude with a dangerous stick. Wow. Yep, see, I'm already hitting stuff. I have to be honest, after I paint it, I'm gonna hit a few things. Not on accident, on purpose, because almost every single photo of the actual lightsabers with their blades, they are dinged up because they actually got used. And I think I'm gonna have to do the same thing. I'm also gonna double check the blade length. "36 inches. All right, let's paint. It's painted, and it is very orange. I'm gonna start unmasking it now. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry. I'll see you in 25 minutes. Beautiful. For now, I'm gonna do one below on one side and one above on the other side. That's awesome. That is super, super cool. And now, it's just a little too clean. I have a C-stand here that I use for overhead shots, but I think right now it's my my lightsaber dueling opponent. It is getting some pretty good dings on there, just like the original. I could do more, but I have a feeling that that's going to happen pretty organically over time as I hand this off to different people. That is my replica of an on-set Darth Maul lightsaber. This came out way better than I ever could have imagined. I mean, that's dope as hell. I have obsessed over this thing for many, many years. Making this has just... it's brought me closer to the prop. And I know that this may not be exactly what they had on set, but it is damn close to it, and it is my replica of this prop. And I hope you like what I did with it. Thank you so much for watching, and you're already here, so you might as well subscribe because you're not going to want to miss stuff like this. Wow. You can't help it.
My mind's eye, Kenobi. Kenobi.